We're about to look at some footage that has been locked away for decades. These will be outtakes from Friday the 13th final chapter. There is no audio with this material. It was found just as silent daily outtakes. So I'll be talking us through as it plays. Oh, there you go. As you can see, it's a cut hacksaw that bleeds, one of Tom Savini's signature tools. Of course, the difficulty is the Jason has to hold the weapon very close to the throat so that you can believe it's embedded in there. Some of this is pretty disgusting. You believe he is actually sawing it. And then the trick for director and actor is to sync up the character's movement with the movement of the saw. The problem here, as you can see in this, crappy outtake, is that if the actor moves a lot, he pulls it away from his neck. If he doesn't move, it doesn't look like he's having his throat cut. So the outtake is limited in its value. It's lovely, isn't it? There he is, getting a dose of red Caro syrup, so he can bleed as his head is twisted. Ted White's hands twisting the head. A false body and a real Bruce. Actually, in the end, we used only shots of the real Bruce. We had made a casting of his head, but didn't use those. Here's a gutting of a nurse outtake. As you can see, weapon is bleeding before we start, but oh, there she goes. There's a jump cut in there. I guess a piece of the material has been taken out and used in the actual film. And this looks a little looks a little strange, but yeah, there you go. Well, all the tricks are revealed, aren't they? That's how Jason lifts a nurse. Yeah. Now, this was a tough one because we don't have we can't hide in darkness here because it's an exterior, day exterior. So this false neck, you sort of can see you can see the way it doesn't quite, match her makeup on her face. But in the end, in the film, we did some timing, color timing, to help ourselves. The thing about all of these scenes that you're looking at here is that they are really raw dailies of outtakes, things we thought weren't really good enough, and they haven't been treated in ways which we ultimately treated the material we used. But in any case, you can see, again, it's the combination of the acting, the drooling actress in that case, and and the effect. We shoot these with multiple cameras, so there will be tighter shots and wider ones, and some shots are established only to use a tiny little piece, maybe the appearance of Jason. And this, for example, there was an edit. We had cut this scene in such a way that it really was, I thought, much better than what's finally used in the film. It's really horrific because of, again, this again illustrates her performance, which is horrible. If you can hear the soundtrack, I mean, just the shrieks that she played and that she did, the bloodletting from Savini's effect, and the piercing of the false piece of her back. Now, of course, with the proper color timing, it is much more convincing. Now this shot is really done on the water besides, and it's the business of holding the piece down, the actor, and having the effect. He is rigged to be lifted out of the water on wires, and as you can see, the wires didn't always work exactly the way we wanted them to. I mean, we only needed a small piece. That's John Sherrod, who just came in with a cowboy hat. He was our stunt coordinator at the time. You can see these wires, and then we had to treat them. We didn't have the benefit of CGI back then, but we had to try to obscure them with other processes. But he was suspended and lifted. There's Crispin. Now that's a reverse action shot where you start out with the cut piece of. That's right, as you can see, the cut piece against his face, pulling it away, and then reversing it so that it appears to be whacking him. Now, of course, you can see there is Jason without the mask, Ted White, in his Ted White, glorious appearance, ducking into the shot back there. There it is. And again, as discussed before, we placed it between his eyes because it seemed much more horrific. As you can see, that's much more difficult to watch than what we finally used in the film. So there was a possibility to cut a version, which of course everyone would have objected to, except a few of you demented viewers. But Crispin really played it, and it is pretty ugly and convincing. Crispin loved doing his death scene. I mean, he couldn't wait to do this. And as you can see, the giant grin at the end. Ah, yes. Ted cleaning the weapon, something I've used in other movies. I don't know, it's some obsession of mine. Now, as you can see, this was not a first take. The window's already broken. And she flies through. Something interesting about that slow motion, look at that. Look at her sailing there. There's something interesting about these shots. I mean, it was totally possible to have used one of those. There's the there she is hitting the roof of the car. This is a take that wasn't used. I ultimately had him do it over again because I didn't like the way she hit the car. So you'll see that in the one that's in the film, the car's already dented because I used take 2. As you can see, an obvious casting of Lawrence's head, but it doesn't appear so in the final cut version. Tom always, tries to advise us to use a real hand or real body part along with any casting, so it helps sell the illusion. I mean, the important part here, you can see in the shadow, the implement in the back of the head. Okay, be careful that Ted doesn't creep into the shot. And again, rigged to bleed, his hand rigged to bleed for the breaking of the nose. As you can see, this could have been much more horrible had we used more of the shot. There we are, all reflected. There's the casting of the head, but of course intended to only, that's pretty hideous. That is ugly. But intended to be used only in the smallest few frames. Frankly, even in the final cut, to my way of thinking, I've left it on the screen too long, so I wish we had even trimmed it more. But in any case, this is intended to be just a few frame cut in between the real actor, the real hands, and yeah, there you go. And it looks like that little piece might have been more convincing than the one we used. So given the opportunity, we'd recut it. There you go. You can see all the tricks there. All right. Now she, as you can see, has the blade already implanted. Can't stand the idea of doing the scene apparently, but she's ready to do it. There you go. She's into the scene, and they throw some sticks at her foolishly. we did this a little bit better in the final version, where we actually put an air cannon behind the door and blow the thing up. And this cornball, attempt is, there it is. That's the trainer holding up I think some kind of a stuffed rabbit or something, trying to lure Gordon out the window. Gordon loves stuffed rabbits, or whatever the heck toy it was. And there he goes. Of course, you can see his tail come up, so he's only jumping that little way out and caught on the mattress. But that is a nice breakaway. Even the second try. Well, there's a third sort of try. That's okay. Second trainer comes and recaptures Gordon, and there you go. Here's the other side. Gordon helps himself out a little bit, but does take the dive. In the end, we made it of a couple of pieces. There you go. That's Rob, or actually a stuntman doing an impression of Rob going through the window there. Okay, throwing the thing over, but ultimately the composition, was such that we wouldn't have wanted to stay on that. He locked him almost trapped himself in the door. Crispin nailed to the doorway, ripped away. Now, we used an insert in the final version of his hand, so you could see the hand being literally torn by the spike that's through it. So that's intended to be both sides of the cut, but the close-up on the hand is what you needed to be able to sell. And there is, of course, Crispin being Crispin. Oh, there she goes. That's, as you can tell, undercranked, so she seems to be falling out faster than she did. And matching the position that she fell in. There you go. Pretty brutal at that speed, but looks unreal. Looks fake at that speed. So we ultimately used something that seemed more realistic. That drop wasn't used. The splitting of the hand, which I actually sat in a movie theater on opening day and heard a fan, after Jason's hand was split by this machete, a fan sitting in front of me said, "Now Jason's mad," as if all the other things that happened to him really didn't impress him. There you go, the splitting of the hand, again done in reverse action. And there is the hideous split hand, a little too crude. As you could see, Kimberly is in character from before she starts, gets a little blood in her eye, but there she goes, the trooper goes again. There's Ted, who, in to his credit, encouraged the actors to really encounter him and whack him with whatever it is they were using. So Ted took a lot of beating on behalf of the film and has helped the film tremendously by doing that. We knew the unmasking of Jason was going to be a very important piece. The dropping of the mask and how it would fall, of course, because the iconic mask had to land just where we needed it to land. So many false attempts on these things until we got the one that we ultimately used. There you go. It was not used with a foot pushing it into position, I might add, yeah. Oh, there you go. Reverse action of the machete in Jason's head. Ted requesting it a little higher. And so there you go. Little Corey has to be able to maneuver this per direction. But Ted is really playing the scene perfectly as he falls. Again, these are issues of lighting, and the way you're seeing it here, it would not be the way we finally color timed it for the film. But also, we need to keep much of this in the dark so that you can't see the details of the way the effect is done. And there always is way more blood than we could possibly use, but there are a few of you out there that think otherwise. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Pulling the thing out and putting it back in. No, as we've discussed earlier, the puppet is really manipulated by lots of people. Make it bleed, manipulate the tongue, facial movement. It does all kinds of things. So, had we used just a tiny piece of that, There you are. And this gets even more hideous because it really separates from the. Yeah, it's the skull totally separates. We could have cut a version that would have been believable. Of course, when you see it in the long form like this, it's not believable. But we could have cut a version using just a few frames of that would have been believable, but way too hideous for most audience.